This is ogforums.com Real Talk, an unfiltered, independent perspective on Acumatica Cloud ERP. My name is Tim Rodman, and I want to mention three things in this pre-recorded intro before we get started. First, thank you to our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Paya. Paya offers Acumatica users a suite of industry-leading payment orchestration tools. Far beyond native Acumatica payments, Paya enables EMV NFC terminals for countersale. They offer a frictionless customer portal through their click-to-pay solution, and they support most e-commerce platforms and point-of-sale solutions used with Acumatica, such as One Retail and AcuPOS. And best of all, omni-channel reconciliation is available for all their solutions. Our second sponsor is DataSelf. DataSelf Analytics is a revolutionary reporting solution that enables organizations to make the most informed decisions faster and easier than ever. It uniquely simplifies business intelligence, empowers anyone to build and access dashboards, and delivers critical business insight when and where you need it. Our third sponsor is Aldrich Web Solutions. Are you a distributor using Acumatica, yet struggling with an e-commerce fit? US-based Aldrich Web Solutions out of Marion, Illinois, has 2 decades of experience helping distributors find success online. Our team of experts built the integration, creating websites that work effortlessly with Acumatica. With our reputation for swift customer service and meticulous attention to detail, we are the perfect fit for distributors needing online solutions. Please take a minute to support this podcast by clicking each one of the sponsor banners located at augforums.com/sponsors. Our sponsors track clicks, and every click helps to support this podcast. The second thing I'd like to mention is that I'm always looking for victims. I mean guests. If you use Acumatica in any capacity, no matter how small, I'd love to talk with you. Check out augforums.com/podcast and click the link near the top of the page to learn more about being a guest on the podcast. Third and finally, I'd love to see you listed on my Rolodex. Check out augforums.com/Rolodex to find out who else is using Acumatica and read the instructions at the top to see how you can add yourself to the list. All right, that's it for the pre-recorded intro. Let's get started. Today is Friday, December 15th, 2023, and this is episode number 118. You can find related links on the episode page at augforums.com/episode 118. Today we're talking with Yuriy Zaletskyy about his company's brand new ChatGPT integration with Acumatica. Hey Yuriy, thanks for coming on.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting.
So I saw your post on LinkedIn. It sounded interesting. ChatGPT is pretty popular these days, at least in terms of people being excited about it. And so it looked like you built some kind of integration. I thought it'd be worth having you on to talk about it. And before we do, I think those who have listened to this podcast have probably picked up. I personally am not a big artificial intelligence person. When AI takes over, if it ever does, some people plan to be put in the human zoo. My plan is to die on the battlefield. So I'm not that big into AI personally, but I just feel like it's overhyped. But I also recognize there's going to be very good use cases. I think we're still figuring out what they are. So yeah, maybe you could start with telling us what made you even want to build a ChatGPT integration, and give us some history on how it came about.
Yeah, well, that's when I thought about ChatGPT overall and artificial intelligence, and let's say die in zoo or not, it reminds me a story when Microsoft Excel, or I believe some other Excel who tools which used to be before Excel become popular or started to gain popularity. We heard, or at least I heard, that accountants will die. Why? Because all accountancy can be done in Excel, so accountants are not necessary. But what it turned out, those accountants which merged their efforts with Excel, they started to prosper, they started to propel, and they started to gain a lot of momentum and market recognition. And those who didn't, uh, unfortunately, yes, they died as professionals. This is like no brainer. And the same is my viewpoint on ChatGPT. Yeah, it's or any other artificial intelligence. Like for example, there is another competitor of ChatGPT, Anthropic or Anthropomorphic. I'm not sure about exact name, but basically, if there is a new tool, you can use that tool, or you can go out of the market. Or if to look in the history far back more, let's say hundred of years, I don't know when exactly railways were invented, but when they were invented, also some fears on the market appear. Like one of the fears was that if train will go with speed higher than 40 kilometers per hour, then all air will be vacuumed from train and people will die from being in vacuum. And everybody who traveled in the train faster than that, nobody died up until now just from the speed. So I believe ChatGPT is basically one of the tools, and everything started in my case. I wanted to build something on Acumatica hackathon. We had a very good team. I was very impressed, specifically with performance of Avon and I forget his name right now. Joshua Van Hussein. I was very pleased to work with them on the technical side, and we did our ChatGPT integration, let's say initial sketch for Acumatica, and then when we thought how it can be applied, we basically considered for customers support. It may be a good idea, and reason why is because Acumatica has a lot of information specific to customer and a lot of requests which customer may ask in one or in the other way. Acumatica may have that. So that's why we thought which area to automate and customer requests, because Acumatica has a lot of information about customers. So that's what I can say, let's say, on the surface about this
Okay.
topic.
And I love that it sounds like it started as a hackathon project. I personally would love to see more hackathon projects turn into real supported products. I feel like there's so many cool ideas that come out of there. They get put on GitHub, but putting something on GitHub is one thing. Creating something that people can really rely on and will be supported is entirely another thing, right? So I love to hear that. It started with the hackathon, and so yeah, maybe you could tell us what does it do. So Acumatica's got a lot of great data in there. Good. ChatGPT can do stuff with that data. How does it work though? How does your integration uh, bring the two things together?
Yeah, so basically, that's quite a good question. So our integration, what it does, it monitors page of Acumatica cases, and each time when new case is created, if that case have specific template or I forget exact wording like case ID, then we collect information of latest 50 sales order of that specific customer, latest information of latest 50 invoices of that customer, credit limit of that customer. And what we basically do, if to compare or if to look from standpoint of ChatGPT users, we basically aggregate all of that information, we send it to ChatGPT, and also we make starting saying like, hey, ChatGPT, this is what my customer asks. This is information I have about that customer in Acumatica, what I can reply on his question. And ChatGPT analyzes that request and it gives reply. So if customer's request is what is my shipping ID, or when it will be delivered, or what is situation with invoice, or like anything related to those entities, related to invoices, shipments, or sales, then ChatGPT will give pretty good answer. Not perfect, of course, it will be kind of automated, but pretty good answer. And of course, if request of the customer will be, what is your policy regarding something, then it is possible to train ChatGPT to have that information, like to make custom ChatGPT. But for now, we wasn't capable to get pretty good traction with customers. So this is something that we kind of want to do, but for now didn't. I can say a kind of ironic situation. When I messaged on LinkedIn information that we have integration between Acumatica and ChatGPT, we get messages from companies which use NetSuite, Sage, Odoo. They ask, hey, can you build this integration for my ERP and, and ChatGPT? But nobody from Acumatica marketplace, so to say, reacted on that, which was for me like, maybe I should switch to some other ERP on that.
Yeah, maybe. And of course, NetSuite's got a much bigger customer base. Could just have to do with size, right? Um, but I think I love how you responded, not with something technical. So, okay, what does your integration do? You went right into a use case. So that made me pretty happy. I'm glad that we went right into a use case, because to me, it's all about the use cases. And it sounds like you settled on cases. So basically, a customer service use case on how to respond to inquiries from customers.
Yeah, exactly. And we have a couple of other options. We added generic inquiries analysis. Because like generic inquiries, they have, like in Acumatica, they are pretty extensive. And we have custom screen where you can select your generic inquiry and you can ask ChatGPT analyze that generic inquiry. For example, like one of the use cases is you can select manufacturing report and ask, or sales report, and you can ask ChatGPT, hey, what are suspicious sales orders in this generic inquiry? Or you can say you can give him information about your sales and ask ChatGPT which customers from this sales report are worthy of getting some VIP manager for somebody who buys a lot and you want to improve your customer satisfaction. So that's another useful case which we have in our integration. And ChatGPT, like of course, everybody can make that analysis by himself. Who should be VIP customer, who should not. But ChatGPT can kind of analyze that for yourself and tell you during this month such and such are worthy to become your VIP customer. Or you can ask ChatGPT something like, again, through our integration, you can say something like, you are experienced customer policy manager and suggest me customer levels for that, for such and such generic inquiry in Acumatica. And ChatGPT pretends to be quite good in that, and it can tell you that, for example, those may get VIP status, those may get gold status, those may get silver status. And for example, this customer may get separate manager, this customer may get, let's say, two of them, they may have one manager, and other customers may have like 10 customers may have single manager or so. And that single manager will not be overwhelmed because quantity of request is relatively small, and he will be more than enough. He will be able to serve all of them more or less simultaneously. So that's another use case.
That's interesting. So, two use cases. One is a customer service helping to create a response for a case that, of course, you could still modify and send out, but at least it gives you a starting point. And the other one is, I would call it like a data analysis use case, which is interesting. I know Power BI has had that for a while. They call it a natural language query, how to query your data. This sounds very similar. And that's a good sign when you see a company like Microsoft put that in to their product a while ago, that you know that it's got a good use case. And so you're basically doing the same thing, except you're doing it on live data. And so I have a question on that. And I guess I don't know much about ChatGPT. So maybe help me out first of all with, if I wanted to install your integration and use it, what do I need on the ChatGPT side? I assume I would need a paid plan, not a free plan. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
So I need a paid plan. And is it, I don't even know how the pricing tiers work. Do you know, like, is it just one paid plan or are there multiple levels to it?
Well, basically, paid plan, which pricing is $20 per month, and then depending from quantity of requests, you will pay on like as you go. So basically, ChatGPT is quite flexible in that regard, and I can say we sent around 200 requests during development uh, per month, and we paid for those 200 requests about $4. So that seems pretty cheap, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, very reasonable. And I like that it's transaction based, just like Acumatica is, not per user. So you can have
Yeah.
as many people as you want using it, and it's just going to be based on the volume. That's cool. I like that. Um, so then I guess the other question I have is, when you talk about training Chat GPT, so there is, this might be, actually, I guess that's my first question, is training Chat GPT on private data part of that paid plan, or does that not exist yet?
Training of ChatGPT is not part of this basic. Like there is. I may be wrong about wording, but if to speak about training of ChatGPT, it will require enterprise license, which is not more expensive. You will just get additional features for you, but
Okay.
then you will be able to train ChatGPT on specific knowledge of your company policy, like what kind of discounts you have, what kind of sick leaves your company have, what kind of delivery you have. So this can be arranged and this can be trained, but this is not part of the package which we provide as of now, because again we didn't, like as I mentioned, from like ironically enough, I seen request of NetSuite and Sage, which was for me like, guys, thank you, thank you for request. You pushing me to open one more business besides Acumatica.
Okay. Your integration is not using the trainable Chat GPT. And I don't know enough about this. This is one thing I've wondered. So it's, in a sense though, you're training it, but like on the fly. So let's stick with let's go back to your cases use case, the first one. You're
Mhm.
sending it somehow information about the customer. You mentioned like the last 10 to 20 sales orders and shipments, invoices, and you're essentially training Chat GPT, but kind of on the fly. And then when it's done, it forgets about it. Is that a good way of describing it?
Yeah, yeah,
So you're not changing its intelligence, but you are essentially training it with private data. And so I guess one question I have is, Do you know if there's a limit to how much data you can feed it in that context?
That is pretty good question. And for now, this limit is, I would say, it's quite small. It's 16,000 tokens, and 16,000 tokens is around, like roughly, it may be more, it may be less, but roughly it is 20,000 words. And
Okay.
what is difference between token and word? ChatGPT, when it makes analysis of data, it's kind of what happens behind the curtain. Like any kind of human language, it has some kind of redundancy. And but from other side, if we speak about textual information, it have sometime comma or question mark. It may add additional sense. So what ChatGPT does when it receives text, it looks on the text and it considers some words which have meaning in the context. So it says, okay, this token is important or this word is important. And when it sees something which is redundant, then it will remove. I noticed some people when they speak, they use like I can say it's mostly related to Ukrainians, but in Ukrainian culture, it is not typical to repeat, or it is not considered as elegant to repeat the same statement over and over again. I noticed in English this not often happens. Like I heard some people who speak, and they often repeat statement like you know, you know, and
That's so true. That's so true. I've noticed that too. Like I feel like that's why Eastern Europeans are good at programming because they're just even the language is more efficient in the way they speak.
could be. Well, ChatGPT, if it notices that in some textual data there are repeatable patterns, it may replace repeatable pattern with single token. And what it also does is, like if it finds idiom, like for example, kick the bucket. Quite often, ChatGPT also replaces those idioms with single words, again for efficiency standpoint. And then when it makes reply, it make opposite conversion.
So it almost sounds like there's two layers to it. Like there's a translate it into a language for the Chat GPT brain, and then you only get charged for the phrase that's tokenized that gets handed off to the Chat GPT brain, and then it comes back and it goes back through that same language layer to present it back to you. Is that a good way of describing it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And so roughly it's 20,000 words. Now you mentioned then your generic inquiry use case, which essentially would be limited then to 20,000 something in terms of what you can hand to it in the context.
Exactly. Exactly.
And you were also talking earlier about a customer policy situation. So I'm, well, I guess before I go there, so I'm going to kind of go into wild ideas mode. Before I go there, did you have a third use case or is it just the two right now? Cases
I have
and generic
third
inquiry.
use case
All right, let's let's
is,
let's go there. Go ahead.
yeah. So third use case is basically improving of email. Like we added custom button to emails screen, and if employee types email and he want to to make message more polite, or for example, you can say to ChatGPT, let's say you want to discuss additional discount with your vendor. So when you type your email, you can say, "Hey, give me such and such discount," and then in prompt section, which our customization adds, you can say, "You are a professional negotiator which read such and such book and follows rules of that book for negotiations. Please rephrase the request for discount to follow rules in that book." in case if ChatGPT is aware of that book, and ChatGPT is aware about a lot of books, ChatGPT will try to rephrase your request for discount, which will follow negotiation rules of specific books. And
Interesting.
to my surprise, it was quite good. Or another example, uh, you can say to ChatGPT in our customization, you are MBA graduate, let's say third year of such and such school, you follower of such and such a professor. Please ask for discount in this email. And if that professor has good representation in the internet, ChatGPT will follow that as well.
That's very interesting. So on the email screen, which I do have to say, I feel like is even more interesting to me now that Acumatica, I think in 23R2, made it a lot easier to add personal email accounts. I didn't like the way it worked before. Now I love how it's right on the user screen and people can manage their own password. So the possibility of someone just sending regular email through the Acumatica application to me is much higher now than it used to be. So I like that you're taking advantage of that. And it sounds like you added something to the email screen, and then it sounds like you made it dynamic and that I can set it up in the application to hard code the phrase that I'm going to send to ChatGPT, but then add in like the body of the email somewhere in that phrase. Is that how it works?
Yeah, yeah. So you basically add your body, then you ask ChatGPT your request, and it modifies body of that email. And then you can, once you click on button save, then it is like that is saved, or you can click on button cancel, and initial what you typed will be restored.
Interesting. Wow. And so is that something I can set up in a screen that you developed, or is it something I would have to deploy with a customization project to set up one of those buttons?
Well, you can publish our package and you will get those buttons automatically, or you can you can program it by yourself, or and go without it. It's up to you.
So you have some pre-canned buttons that are pretend you're a professional, whatever phrases you use. But if I wanted to use my own phrases, I would just add a customization project to do that. I'm still leveraging your integration on the back end, but I do need to deploy a customization project to add my own phrases into the buttons. Is that a good way of putting it?
We didn't put much thought on prompts in customization. We can give just some ideas what you can put in prompts, but that is mostly, let's say, for implementation stage. What you want to put in prompts.
Okay, so it sounds then like the prompts themselves, I don't have to define in a customization project. I get to define them somewhere in a setup
Yeah,
screen.
yeah.
Ah, okay, that's what I was wondering. Okay. So yeah, it sounds like I then can create my own prompts, which then automatically appear as buttons on the email screen.
Basically, on the email there is a text field where you enter your prompt, and then you click on the button improve answer, and we send text of your prompt and email to ChatGPT. It works on that and returns improved answer.
Ah, okay. So you type it on the fly. If you wanted to have a pre-canned prompt, do you have like a template that you could just choose from?
No, we don't have.
Okay. Not yet. I mean, this is a new product, so yeah, I'm getting into the wish list of features here. But I love the idea of helping you write an email, or not even help you write, but just help to suggest portions of it. That sounds really cool. Okay,
Yeah, but I
so
can
three
say,
use cases.
yeah,
All right, go ahead.
yeah. Although I want to mention quite disappointing in ChatGPT is each time when you say to ChatGPT word email, ChatGPT always starts from the statement, I hope this mail finds you well. So each time when now you get, and recently I investigated a couple of CRMs like HubSpot and some others, and plenty of them mentioned ChatGPT integration. And after playing by myself with this email functionality, I found that ChatGPT always or almost always starts with statement, I hope this email finds you, and then either well or well today or in good spirit. And almost there is no prompt which forces ChatGPT to avoid this beginning. I hope this email.
That's funny. Well, that's today, right? ChatGPT a month from now could be different, but yeah, it is. I love how you think of it as a tool, and I do as well. And I like how you pointed out some historical examples. I think my dying on the battlefield is still a bit in jest, although if it were to happen, that is my plan. But yeah, I see it as a tool as well. It's not a replacement for humans, and it's we just need to learn how to use it better. And like you said before, if you don't learn how to use it, you might get replaced, but if you do learn how to use it, you're not going to get replaced. It's going to have limits like everything else. I remember when Google searches came out. I mean, some people I feel like made a living for a while there off of just being the person who would be willing to do a Google search to know, to learn something in a company, right? I feel like ChatGPT is similar. You just have to get used to using it, learn it what it's good at and what it's not good at.
Yeah, I can say kind of off topic, but when I used to be a student, one friend of mine, she was looking for her PhD material in literature, and for her it was like she was desperate for materials for that PhD, and the only way to get materials which was known for her is basically to go to library in other country, like kind of 2 or 3,000 kilometers far away from her home. And she started to prepare money for that travel, and then she informed me that she wants to do that. And I told her, like I told it like a joke and said, listen, give me tenth part of those money, and 3 days from now I will give you materials for your PhD. And try to guess what was her reply.
Uh, she was willing to do it. I don't know. Was she just
Yeah,
laughing at
yeah.
you?
No, she gave me money, which she planned for the trip. I googled those data. I printed them on printer, and I brought to her 500 pages of those materials, which I googled. She was extremely happy, and in this way, one more PhD was born.
That's interesting. Perfect example there of you just knew how to use a tool that was new and scary to other people and valuable to them. Same thing with ChatGPT.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like I can say, for me, it's a bit hard to understand why people believe that technology by itself will decide to kill people. But basically, technology is a tool which definitely can speed up killing of other people because, but that is something that happens all the time during human history, which is a bit sad to admit. But if initially humans used to kill each other with help of stick, then with stick and stone, then with sword, then with gun, then with machine guns, then with tanks, then with nuclear munitions, airplanes. Yeah, like this set of weapons just grows more and more. But I would say history teaches us that humans are not teachable, and I would say I said to admit that I'm convinced that artificial intelligence will be used for killing people in the same way as nuclear weapon is way used for that purpose. So this is not something that can be prevented. It can just unfortunately continue. But the only way, like if something new happens, the best strategy would be not try to forbid it, but to use it. Otherwise, it will be like let somebody, if accountants, for example, will make some kind of unity to forbid Excel usage because there are accountants which cannot use it. Or people who deal with horses will make some unity which forbids usage of cars or trains because they will be jobless or so. It will not give any kind of good outcome because unfortunately progress or fortunately for me at least but progress is inevitable, and the only way to deal with that would be to use that and maybe control it, but you cannot, let's say, stop it completely.
Great points. Yeah, and I like your thinking there. It's just a tool. You can't blame it for the outcomes. Just like, I mean, well, I don't want to get political, but you could blame the machine gun in World War I. You could blame the nuclear bomb, but still, at the end of the day, someone had to decide to use it, right? And same thing with artificial intelligence. I pessimistically agree with you there as well. It probably will, unfortunately, be used nefariously, but it's still just a tool. There's someone who needs to wield that tool, and that's just the way it is, and you can't stop it. So, sort of like with if I were to use my die on the battlefield analogy, with nuclear weapons, the philosophy, at least in the 1980s, was mutually assured destruction. You just develop
Mhm.
nuclear weapons across multiple countries, and that's what stops you from using them. So maybe it's similar with artificial intelligence. It's an arms race, and that's what prevents the usage. It's not legal. I mean, you just can't stop it, right? So you just have to tool up on it and operate in the world that you live in, even though you might not want to, but you just don't really have another choice.
Yeah, yeah. Like I also don't want to get political, but still, from other side, something is going to change. Yeah, like this tool, new tools going to appear. Like I can say, let's say 50 years ago, if you look on list of technologies, list of tools, it was one word. Now, if you look on list of technologies and tools, it's totally different world or very different. And 50 years from now, it will be different as well. And the only way, or I would say the only reasonable way, is to adopt it. Of course, you can fight against that, saying it is not ethical, it is not moral. Unfortunately, as long as there are pretty big part of human society which doesn't care about ethic, about moral, the only thing you can do is try to use the same train, to use the same car, or to use the same Excel or any other tool in order not to be left behind the corner.
Great way of putting it. So you've nailed down three use cases. Now I'm starting to wonder: is there a fourth? Do you have, or not even use cases, features in your product? Do you have more? Or is it the three for now?
For now, those are three. We try to like I mean those which we sent on the Acumatica certification. Those are three. We have others in development, but they are kind of in development stage for now.
Now you mentioned the 20,000, roughly 20,000 or so words. It did get me thinking that since you can do the generic inquiry, you had brought up early on in the first use case that it wouldn't be able to respond to a question about your customer policy. But if I could feed it my customer policy in a generic inquiry, it would know about my customer policy. Now, we've already talked about I can't train it on my data, but I can provide it data on the fly when I'm prompting it. So, where I'm going with all this is there a way to combine the generic inquiry capability with either the email or the case capability, where you could essentially have it go do its own query, like dynamically go find information, and make that part of the, what do you call it, like a prompt, part of the prompt to ChatGPT. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's definitely possible. Question which I would have: how repeatable that interest is, or how often end users will need it. Because when I developed those three use cases, I thought, okay, so how a lot of companies want to use it, and I thought like everybody or almost everybody have customers, and I hardly can imagine somebody who uses Acumatica and don't have customers. So that's point number one. Point number two: everybody want to use email. Hardly can imagine somebody who uses Acumatica and don't use email. And everybody likes generic inquiry analysis. So yeah, to automate generic inquiry analysis, definitely something useful. And if to say combine three of them into one, definitely possible. But yeah, question: how often will be demand for that?
Great response. And as a computer programmer yourself, you do a great job of questioning the application of technology. I just got geeky on you, and you didn't take the bait. You brought it back to, is this useful first, right? Before we go down that rabbit hole. So great job. Yeah, I don't know. I was starting to think mechanically, but I love how you brought it back to the use cases. And I haven't thought about Chat GPT a whole lot, but sounds like you're way ahead of me, and that's part of why I wanted to talk to you about this. I like, I almost like the guardrails that you've put on it so far, in that ChatGPT is a tool. We're still figuring out how to use it, and it may be that the prompts, it makes more sense that the prompts have the guardrails on it, that it's already built in, and so that when people are using it, they're using it with those guardrails rather than just crafting their own thing on the fly. I don't know if that makes sense, but it seems like that's kind of the approach that you've taken.
Well, basically, I benefit from guardrails of which ChatGPT put by themselves. And as of, let's say, from business standpoint, when I ask to add some feature to Acumatica, quite often, as many ESVs and many VARs, I try to figure out, can this be productized? And in order for something to be productized, I look from standpoint like what every business owner wants to do, or at least what a lot of business owners want to do. They want to have something that is repeatable, something that is in demand. Then they split that in chunk and hire people or hire computer to work or to automate this chunk and get profit.
Yeah, so I like, you've got the three use cases. If any one of those are attractive to someone, they're using Acumatica, they want to use this thing. What are next steps? So first, you mentioned Acumatica certification. Does that mean Acumatica has looked at your code and you're like, this product is officially listed in the Acumatica marketplace?
Yeah, Acumatica, that was very long story of certification of that ChatGPT, because yeah, Acumatica, first of all, they analyzed our source code, and initial feedback of Acumatica was there are too small amount of use cases, so please add more use cases. And because Acumatica got pretty big amount of certification requests recently, due to approaching of the summit, and before the summit, everybody wants to get certified, everybody wants to get more and more. So certification cases now take 2 months or around 2 months, which is a bit sad. But yeah, Acumatica analyzes source code, and we had our certification on marketplace for a couple of days, but then 23 R2 gets released, and we didn't pay much attention. So for now, our product is taken off from marketplace, unfortunately. We submitted it again for certification, and now 1-2 months we will need to wait. I hope it will. I hope it will get some attention. And on the Acumatica summit, every each new customer whom I will meet, I will ask them, "Hey, would you like to give a try to Acumatica and ChatGPT integration?"
So even though it's not officially in the marketplace, in my opinion, that means absolutely nothing. Do you know if it still works on 23 R2?
It works.
Yeah, so it works. It's a real product. What I don't even know what you call it. What's your official name for the thing?
Uh, Good question. I need to I need to look for what kind of name we gave. I believe ECU GPT, but I'll need to check. Maybe maybe we need to come with better sounding name.
But it's a real thing. Yeah, you're now working on the marketing side of it. It
Yeah,
sounds like it's been thought through pretty well. It's not a bare bones hackathon project. It's been fleshed out. I like your three use cases, and it's out. So, what would be next steps for someone who would want to try this out? Like, what do they do?
write me an email and we will get on a call and see how you can use it.
Okay, I think I'm gonna push you to do one better. Let's see, Yuri, if well, let's see if you think this is possible. In the next couple of weeks, by the time this podcast episode has been published, do you think I could have a link from you on your website that is an official product page with an official name, whatever it is, and also a contact form that someone could fill out?
Sure, I will arrange that.
Okay, deal. So, dear listener, by the time you are listening to this, you will have a link in the related links on this episode page at augforums.com/episode 118. And you can go there to find out what you can do. And so, let's say they'll fill out that form. Do you have a pricing mechanism in place, or how does it work from that standpoint?
Yeah. Well, pricing. Uh, we also didn't thought much on pricing as well, but it will not be expensive. I can guarantee you,
So you're
unless somebody wants very very intricate and specific functionality.
okay. So you've mentioned the chat GPT pricing. Is your thought that it won't be a lot on top of that?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're just looking for people to use this at this point. It sounds very interesting, and as we've talked at multiple points on this episode already, this is one of those things that's not going to go away, and you're either going to learn it now or you're going to be a little bit behind later. So it seems like something that would be cool, not just cool, but worthwhile for companies to invest in.
Yeah. I hope. Well, I see huge potential in that, but want to see real market response, and I hope I will be able to promote that market message properly because like if to take lesson from Facebook wasn't the first social media, but besides everything, Mark Zuckerberg was good seller of that and good promoter. He knew where to promote it. So maybe I believe my product is good. I'm not sure how good salesman I am, but that's I believe another topic for totally another podcast.
So it's a real thing. I do also have a question if you're using it at your own company. So AccuPower does development, and I think you even do any type of services around Acumatica. So I would imagine that if you're using Acumatica support cases, I guess that's first question. Second question is, are you using your own product on them?
Uh, we don't use for support. We use for writing code, in Acumatica. Some, like, of course, it's not perfect code writer, but pretty good. And if you know how to prompt properly, ChatGPT can give pretty good replies.
Yeah, I've heard that's a huge use case already. Yeah, Copilot. I think Microsoft's got Copilot and helping programmers write code. ChatGPT is really good at that. Yeah. Maybe that would be something that you guys could adopt in the near term. Start using your own product on cases, and then, once you eat your own dog food, it makes it that much better, right?
Definitely. At least it makes Doc much more happier.
Well, very cool. Thanks for talking through some of those details. I was interested to learn more about it. I feel like someone connecting with your company, it's not just about the product that you've built. I feel like it's also about the I would call it expertise that you have at this point in ChatGPT. You might not feel like an expert, but compared to the average person, you are, right? And just having thought through use cases and having been using ChatGPT, at least in the coding capacity, and I think more than that in the development of the product, you've gotten familiar with how ChatGPT works, what it's good at, what it's not, and just from an implementation standpoint, how someone would implement ChatGPT in their enterprise. It sounds like your company has become a leading resource on that. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. We have enough people. So basically, my idea, but we have at least three developers who know how to use it. We have at least one business analyst who written documentation for Acumatica when submitted certification case. We get pushback from Acumatica, I believe, 4 or 5 times. And it was a challenge to convince Acumatica about market value of that product. So we definitely quite knowledgeable, and I can say at company level we're knowledgeable because not only myself but plenty of people know that.
Yeah. So, and maybe that's something you work into your product page. What it sounds to me is that your offering is not just a product offering, it's also a consultancy offering. You have
Yeah,
expertise in an area that companies know they need to adopt at some point. They're just not sure how. And that type of strategic, how do we bring ChatGPT into our organization, specifically connecting it to our Acumatica application, whether they even use your product or not, it sounds like you could provide services, at least in terms of at least having conversations about it and helping them think through it and whether they would want to even take that next step to actually do it.
yeah.
Well, cool. Well, thanks, Yuri, for taking the time to come on today. I appreciate it. And I definitely
Thanks.
feel more educated about ChatGPT, although I still plan to die on the battlefield if that ever happens. Though I don't think it will at this point, but you never know.
Well, everybody will die sooner or later. It's like
Good
philosophy.
point. And on that note, uh, on that note, we'll wrap it up. Thanks, Yuri.
Thank you, Tim.
All right. Well, that's it for now. We'll catch you on the next episode of ogforums.com Real Talk. Thanks for listening and take care.